All right, so let's jump right in. Have you ever read something and the ending just feels wrong? Well, we're going to tackle one of the biggest head scratchers in the entire Bible today. I'm talking about the book of Lamentations. It's this book that's just steeped in grief, right? But the way it ends, man, it's just hopeless. It's a real puzzle, and together we're going to see if we can solve it. I mean, just listen to this. This is the very last line. After page of pure, raw sorrow, this is how it signs off. There's no glimmer of hope, no it's all gonna be okay moment. Nope, just this big, dark, hanging question. It's so jarring you can't help but ask, right? Why on earth would a holy book, a text about faith, end on a note of such deep, unresolved doubt? That's the core mystery we're digging into. And look, on the surface, it feels totally wrong. But what if it's not a mistake? What if there's something way more brilliant and powerful going on here than we first realize? Okay, so to crack this case, the first thing we got to understand is that we're not just reading a simple, oh, please help me kind of prayer. No. The author is doing something very specific and, honestly, a lot more aggressive. And that right there is our first big clue. This is a special category of prayer. It's called a psalm of complaint against God. And listen, this isn't about complaining about your boss or your enemies. This is pointing the finger straight up, directly at God, and protesting his inaction or even his actions. It's a really bold, almost confrontational way to pray. And you might think, wow, that must be super rare, right? But get this, it's not some obscure fringe idea, not even close. If you look at all the laments in the book of Psalms, almost a third of them are these direct, in-your-face complaints against God. So this was a totally established, and frankly, a pretty common way for people to talk to God. So let's just make sure we're all on the same page here. A regular lament is basically, God, I'm in trouble, please help. But a complaint, that's a whole different ballgame. That's more like, God, you promised to help, and you're not showing up. What gives? See the difference? It goes from a quiet request to a full-blown protest. And there are some classic pells for these complaints. You'll see two big questions pop up again and again, why and how long. But here's the thing, they're not actually looking for an answer, you know? It's not like they want a PowerPoint presentation explaining the divine plan. These are cries of frustration, of pure bewilderment. It's basically the ancient way of screaming at the sky, just enough, already. Okay, so once you get this, that weird ending to Lamentations, it totally changes. It stops sounding like just a random emotional breakdown and starts to look like something else entirely. It looks like a legal argument, like the author is a lawyer, carefully building a case, piece by piece, to present in the highest court in the universe. And Exhibit A in this case, it's this giant, glaring contradiction. For hundreds of years, the people were raised on what's called Zion theology. The promise was that Jerusalem was God's home on earth, the city of the great king. It was supposed to be untouchable. But the reality they saw with their own eyes was rubble, a wasteland so empty that wild animals were literally roaming the streets. The complaint takes this gap, this huge chasm between promise and reality, and turns it into a weapon. So check this out. Right before that devastating final line we started with, the author says this. And at first glance, it just looks like normal praise, right? Just a classic God is great statement. But remember, we're in a courtroom now. And in the context of this complaint, this line of praise is a brilliant strategic move. Because here's the twist. This isn't just praise. It's evidence. It's the lawyer turning to the judge and saying, Your Honor, this is who you say you are. It's a clever way of cornering God with his own job description. It's like saying, okay, you reign forever. Your throne endures. So why does your throne room look like this? Why aren't you acting like the king you claim to be? And this, right here, is where it all clicks into place. This is the big reveal. That super negative downer of an ending, it's not about giving up. It's the exact opposite. It's a really daring, really provocative act of hope. Let's bring it down to a human level for a second. Picture a couple that's been married for years. And one day, one of them, feeling totally ignored, just blurts out, "You don't love me anymore." Now, when they say that, do they actually 100% believe it's a fact? Usually not. What they're really doing is throwing out a challenge. They're trying to break through the silence, to get a reaction, to provoke a response.
They want to be contradicted. They're hoping to hear, "What are you talking about? Of course I love you." It's a high-stakes move to reconnect.
And believe it or not, we see this exact same play unfold elsewhere in the Bible. In Isaiah, the people complain. They say, "The Lord has forgotten me." And what happens? Does God get angry? No. He responds with maybe the most beautiful, tender promise of love in the entire book. So the strategy worked. The complaint got them exactly the response they were desperately hoping for.
And that is the absolute core of this whole thing. That last verse of Lamentations, it's not the people walking away from their faith. It's them digging their heels in and refusing to let go of God. It's an incredible act of faith that basically says, "We believe in you and your promises so fiercely that we refuse to accept this horrible reality. We are going to challenge you, we are going to provoke you until you act like the God we know you are."
So that kind of begs the question, right? If this was such a powerful, accepted way of expressing faith back then, what happened to it? Where did the art of complaining to God go? Well, it's interesting. In a lot of modern Christianity, this tradition has kind of faded away. It's often seen as, I don't know, disrespectful. There's this idea that you just don't talk to God like that. But in Judaism, the tradition is very much alive, especially in response to suffering. I mean, think about Tevi and Fiddler on the Roof. He's always arguing with God, right? Shaking his fist at the sky, saying things like, I know, we're the chosen people, but once in a while, can't you choose someone else?" That's it right there. That's the complaint. It's an argument that can only happen inside a deep, committed relationship. Which leaves us with this one last thing to think about. I think we're often taught that complaining to God or being angry with God is a sign of weak faith, a failure. But what if this strange, dark ending to an ancient book is trying to teach us the complete opposite? What if, when everything has fallen apart, challenging God, arguing with God, isn't a sign that you're losing your faith, but is actually how you fight for it?